Back at it again. It's another episode of New and Blue, a New York Giants podcast. I am one half of your show, Rick Serritella, here for the second edition of All Access Football. This morning we aired the first episode of All Access Football Daily Show. Hope you enjoyed it. We went around the league, the football universe. This show, however, is dedicated to your Big Blue Wrecking Crew, the New York Football Giants. They kick off Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern at the Washington Commanders. We got a really good show lined up for you today because New and Blue, we dissect the new New York Giant players, what they're going to do. We're going to take a look at some of the impact players, who's going to have the biggest role this upcoming Sunday amongst some of your new G-men. Also, we're going to take a look at some of the moving and shaking transactions, last second roster gymnastics, and then we also have keys to victory. Why or why not? The New York Giants will win against Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders. And to do that all with me here today is my other half of New and Blue. He is Dan Orlando. Buckle up for another hour of power. Dan, how we doing this week? We've got real regular season football.
It's exciting. It took a long time to get here. It always feels like it does, but we're officially here. Giants football in less than 6 days at this point.
Yeah, so let's get right into it because we are New and Blue. We're talking about some of the new players who are going to make an impact. Let's look at this upcoming Sunday. Washington Commanders, obviously a very tough matchup. In fact, looking at the Giants' strength of schedule, they have the toughest number one strength of schedule in the entire league, a 574 winning percentage, 10 playoff teams on the schedule out of 17, 10 teams that also won 10 games a year ago. So, hey, you want to be the man, you got to beat the man, and it starts with Jaden Daniels right here, right now on Sunday. Where do you want to start off in terms of impact players, new Big Blue players? Who you got for us?
Well, we're going to start out with someone that's guaranteed to be an impact player for them that's new, Roy Robertson-Harris. This is a guy that was brought in to be a rundown specialist for them, give them some depth on that defensive line. They're well known with the Giants. They have arguably the best defensive tackle in football, but not much behind him, at that same position. So he's going to come in, and if they can stop the run, and we're going to talk about that a lot today, if they can stop the run on Sunday, they should allow that pass rush that everyone's so excited about to go to work. But if they can't stop the run, well, then Abdul Carter and Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns may not get to, rush the passer quite as often as they'd like and put Jaden Daniels in a compromising position.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot of power on power in this matchup. Looking at the trenches, I noticed just looking at the Commanders' depth chart, they've got two converted tackles kicked inside, and Brandon Coleman and Sam Cosmi, two guys that were originally tackles, now playing interior as the starting guards. Of course, they brought in Laramie Tunsil from the Texans, Andrew Wiley at right tackle, and Tyler Biadasz out of Wisconsin there holding the middle. So a pretty good offensive line. Roy Robertson-Harris, of course, has some inside-outside versatility. That's some of the appeal that they brought him in. I saw defensive line coach Andre Patterson talking glowingly about his versatility. A 9-year veteran, so while he's new to the New York Giants, this is a guy who knows how to handle his business. And I think he is going to have a very underrated key role, not only in this matchup, Dan, but I think throughout the season. He's going to be a key cog, whether that's starting or rotational piece or a spelling Dexter. Roy Robertson-Harris, I expect him to get significant snaps.
I absolutely do as well. And this is going to be a situation where people may argue the Giants should have done even more to shore up that defensive line. I believe they hope that Darius Alexander, the rookie out of Toledo, who was a third-round pick, was going to be that Leonard Williams-type player off of the bat. That was an unrealistic expectation. Very slow start to training camp, not somebody who flashed in the preseason. I do expect him to be a factor later, but probably not Sunday. In fact, I find it doubtful he gets a game day jersey on Sunday. But I look at Roy Robertson-Harris. This is a guy that flashed in the preseason despite looking like he maybe was laying off a bit in practice and kind of underwhelming in practice. He's going to be a big part of this. And also, let's not forget, the Commanders did move on from Brian Robinson Jr., which means Austin Eckler a guy that, had a limited role last year, but still averaged about 30 yards per game, is going to step in at 30 years old as a feature back. So there's a big question mark there. Are the Giants going to be at least average in run defense? And is Austin Eckler going to be above average as a running back? I think the keys to the game, that's certainly one of them.
Well, I think you got to look out for Bill Krosky, Moret, formerly known as Jacory, who I just loved. I thought he was fantastic. I watched him at the Hula Bowl. He was the East-West Shrine Bowl MVP. I slapped a 4th round grade on him, and I felt like I was being conservative. I wanted to put him in my 1st round equation. I thought he was that good, but he didn't play his final season due to eligibility issues. So Eckler, Moret, we'll see. I mean, that's going to be an interesting backfield there for the Commanders. They felt confident or saw enough from that rookie to deal off Brian Robinson. So that just tells you how much they think of Jacory, also known as Bill Krosky Moret, who I'm a big fan of. I got to say, I liked them coming out of college.
No one in the NFC sends off their key players, Rick. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, we had a little bit of moving and shaking in the NFC East. If we have time, we'll talk about Micah Parsons and his injury that might need a cortisone shot here. But listen, we're talking new and blue. Dan Orlando, Rick Serritella. We're here with you each and every week of the way. This is episode number 6 here on the September 1st, 2025 on All Access Football. If you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, X, please smash that like button, share, subscribe, get the new show alerts, tell the friends that it's them again. We're back talking Big Blue, and there's a lot of new Big Blue on the defensive side of the ball, isn't there, Dan?
Absolutely. And the one everyone's the most excited to see is Abdul Carter. That's no secret. Everyone's been waiting for him to get a full game worth of play. Most likely won't be the starter. I think the common consensus is that Thibodeau still gets that honorary first snap, but this is going to be someone that factors in. He's also going to set the edge against the run. He's not just a pass rusher. So, Abdul Carter having a big game, a big debut as a rookie, again, is something that could put the Giants in the driver's seat. If you're thinking about the Commanders right now, the key thing that's going to make you nervous is Jayden Daniels. He is a talent. He may have a sophomore slump that does tend to happen, but he is obviously a very talented player. If the Giants can find a way to bring Jayden Daniels down to earth, that is going to go a long way in helping them get the victory. And Abdul Carter is arguably the biggest piece of that puzzle.
Yeah, with Daniels, it's an interesting strategy because he's almost more dangerous on the move. So, if you apply the pressure and he gets out of the pocket, he can hurt you really bad. And I saw, I think it was Justin Pugh and longtime Giants beat writer Art Stapleton got over a little Twitter spat with how Abdul Carter would be used against those Washington Commanders team. And I think we lost Dan there for a second. We'll see if we get him back on. But Pugh and Stapleton were going back and forth in regard to how they should use Abdul Carter. And Art Stapleton, I don't know if he was speaking on firsthand knowledge or just making an assumption based on what he thought would happen, but he had suggested that Abdul Carter might actually shadow Jayden Daniels and maybe drop back and be used in pass coverage where Pugh was like, F that. I mean, that was his words. F that. Send the horses, man. So is that substance? Is that fabric substance? What do you think there with Abdul Carter?
I think Stapleton's is as he usually is. He's right on. I think he has been a stack linebacker. The majority of his college career was as a stack linebacker, somebody who could roam over the middle and blitz, through the A gap, right over. He can come in through the guards. So you can use him that way. But it's look, it's the first game of the year. It's easy to want to just open up your Christmas presents on the first day. Moving Carter for some of those pass rush downs, even second downs, moving him out so he's in the stack position so he can keep contain on Jayden Daniels. Given this matchup, I think it makes all the sense in the world. As you get, into the schedule and there's some more stationary type guys, maybe that's not as necessary. But if he is a good quarterback spy option and you feel, again, you have Burns, who should be one of the better edge rushers in the league, Thibodeau, who, is a good edge rusher. He's not great. He keeps showing signs that maybe he breaks out and becomes great, but you have Dexter Lawrence, you have pass rushing horses, even if you drop Abdul Carter back, which, by the way, you can still have him blitz from the center and make it even more lethal. So I'm in the same boat as Art. I move him to stack if they feel that's going to help contain Jaden Daniels.
We shall see. I know New York Giants fans aren't going to be ecstatic about it, but speaking of moving parts, I'm interested to see how they employ Paulson Adebo because, I saw here in his 4 years previously, he had lined up strictly on the left side 94.4% of the time. And even going back to his days at Stanford, he was primarily on the left side of the field. I'm curious to see. And Dayball was asked about it and he didn't directly address it, but he basically said like he feels confident in Adebo to do whatever's asked of him, right? But I'm wondering, like, will he follow Terry McLaurin around the field, especially considering the Giants' cornerback depth? I mean, how do you see Paulson Adebo's role?
I see him as cornerback one. Now, whether that means he's constantly on the number one receiver, based off last year, probably not, what they went with last year. But that being said, the cornerback two, I think they had way more confidence in last year. That might have been misaligned confidence. But look, right now it's Deonte Banks and Cordell Flott. Neither one of them really won the job. Cordell Flott does excel in man coverage, but A, it's hard to keep him on the field. B, his zone coverage is it's almost like not having someone out there. You just hope that the quarterback doesn't get to that read. So that is a major problem. Deonte Banks is a first-round pick that plays like a fourth-round pick. He excels in sticky man coverage, and he's good in press, but he just does not turn his head around. So you're quite often getting to a position where the receiver still makes a play on the ball, particularly when you have a wide receiver one going up against him, or he's drawing a flag. So honestly, I think Adebo is the only cornerback that they feel really good about right now. And in a game where he's going up against Terry McLaurin, I do think he's going to be with him the majority of the time, even if he has to move to the other side of the field, especially because it's week one. The Giants might get burned doing that and then readjust. But I tend to think they're going to just let him be cornerback one for this weekend and see how it goes.
I think that's an interesting storyline to keep an eye on because if he does stay strictly on the left, I could see Washington putting McLaurin in mismatch situations there on Flott and Banks. All right. Sticking in that secondary, Javon Holland, I saw, and I hate these anonymous quotes. ESPN is infamous for this, but I saw the anonymous quote where Javon Holland, the Giants severely overpaid. He drastically regressed. He had career lows in tackles and pass deflections and interceptions and forced fumbles a year ago. The Canadian native from British Columbia, by the way. What do you got on Javon Holland?
I think he's a solid player. He looked good in preseason. Obviously, this is someone who has not he didn't have the year he wanted to have in the contract year. What he's really known for right now, if you were not a Miami football fan, is that infamous return against the Jets on that first Black Friday game where it was, I think, 108-yard pick six, something like that. But the reality is, he is a good player. I think Joe Shane was admitting a mistake, to be quite honest, where he really should just have kept Xavier McKinney. And I think if you're going to look at it from that lens, Xavier McKinney is probably still a better player. So the Giants probably did downgrade a bit there. The reality is, though, they did need talent in that safety department. They still really don't have anywhere near the depth that they should have. And that's kind of scary because if you want to have an honest look, there's a lot of positive vibes around the Giants right now. But Joe Shane almost let that entire room fall apart this year. Forget about last year with McKinney. I mean, the reality is that the Giants were reportedly going to spend Holland's money on another offensive guard, Will Freeze, and that fell apart. So they pivoted to Holland and offered him a big contract. So there's a real scenario, like a very realistic scenario where the Giants have Tyler Nubin and just kind of Dane Belton and nothing really else with them. So right now, I think Holland's a key part to making sure that secondary allows the pass rush to function and vice versa. So I'm very excited to see what he does on Sunday. But another reason he's on this list, if something should happen to him or Nubin, the Giants are very thin at safety.
Yeah, a lot of new pieces there on the defensive side of the ball. We've talked about the offensive side of the ball at length, specifically the offensive line, but I know you've got your eye on one offensive lineman who's really making a name for himself.
Yeah, so at the top of the show, I said Roy Robinson Harris was definitely going to be a key factor. James Hudson is a break glass in case of emergency key factor. It's not certain right now that Andrew Thomas is going to be the starting left tackle in week one. If you're a Giants fan, you're very familiar with Thomas not being available or playing while hurt. It looks like the best case scenario is that second one this Sunday. He's probably going to be very, very close to if he feels comfortable to play, if he does, in fact, suit up on week one this coming Sunday. So if he's not ready to go and he didn't commit to it, he made it sound like, hey, if he feels he's still a couple weeks off, he's going to hold back, then that's going to be James Hudson there at offensive tackle. This is a player that the Giants probably overpaid for a bit, but the reality is just mediocre offensive tackles do go for $5-6 million a year. It is what it is. At least the Giants have a plan there this year. It's not just Josh Azudu, who's not a tackle. So the reality is he's probably going to be playing. I think if I had to guess right now, he is. Can he be serviceable? Can he be a quality tackle? I'm not looking for Andrew Thomas level performance, but can he keep Russell Wilson upright, keep Russell Wilson being able to go through his reads and allow that Giants offense to function? That's going to be key. If not, if he does struggle and Thomas isn't ready, that's going to probably lead to Jermaine Illuminor having to move from the right side, come over to the left side, and then Marcus Bowe, another new Giant, getting his start at right tackle for week 2. So there's a lot to watch on the left side of that line. And if Andrew Thomas isn't ready, you can see a whole bunch of new Giants taking the field.
The New York subway turnstiles, also known as the New York Giants offensive line, let the movement begin because, first of all, before I address Andrew Thomas, James Hudson does have 46 games played of experience during his time with Cleveland. Okay, 17 games started. All right. Mostly primarily at right tackle, 14 at right tackle, 3 at left tackle a year ago. But I got news for you, Dan. At this juncture, Andrew Thomas was activated on August the 19th from the PUP list. And of course, he came off that Liz Frank. And now he had to have another surgery in April to remove a screw from his foot.
Yep.
He also had to have his ankle cleaned up again, where he's had multiple scopes. At this point, you've got to wonder, medically speaking, if Andrew Thomas's career is in jeopardy. I don't know if we're ever going to see, if he even makes it back to the field. I don't believe he'll ever be anything close to what he once was. And Giants fans have to begin wondering if this guy will ever see the field again. And you mentioned, like, if Hudson doesn't hold weight, we could see a lot of moving and shaking and shifting along that Giants offensive line.
A lot. And, if you're making a list of the top Giants players, obviously Andrew Thomas, in theory, if we're building a Madden roster, is going to be on it. But the reality is he's not been healthy for most of his career. If he is playing, he's typically not playing fully healthy. You're basically foreshadowing what I anticipate we're talking about at the end of the season, next offseason. Are the Giants spending a first-round pick on an offensive tackle? Are they spending a second-round pick on an offensive tackle? I do feel, even if Thomas plays the majority of this season, that the Giants do need to start thinking about life after him. He's probably not someone who gets another contract from them unless there's a drastic change in his availability and if he shows that he is completely fine after having these surgeries. So if you're a New York Giants fan, we've now taken for granted the past couple of years that we have a solid left tackle, a great left tackle when he's healthy. The reality is I think the Giants might have to look into moving on from him as soon as next year, or if for financial reasons, 2027.
Availability is still your best ability. Rick Serritella, Dan Orlando, breaking it down, chopping it up. New and Blue, episode number 6 here on the September 1st. We're counting down to that Commanders kickoff, 1 p.m. Sunday. Before our commercial break, a couple of transactions. I saw Trace Ford was released. Gunnar Oslowski brought back. Zaire Barnes, the linebacker out of Western Michigan, and Curtis McClendon, the guard out of Chattanooga, added to the practice squad. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, well, Gunnar was just roster gymnastics. Not surprised there. I expect him to be the kick returner and likely punt returner come Sunday. Smith Murset was brought back to the practice squad, but he's not on the active roster. And in terms of the Trace Ford being released, I was surprised. I felt that he did show that it was worth looking at and seeing if you could cultivate over the course of this year. Obviously, the Giants are very their top 3 edge rushers may be the best in the league, and Chauncey Golston is pretty solid. He's a solid.
Yeah.
And
But you know what? Trace Ford was a good-looking young edge rusher, quick, explosive off the ball, strong, good, nice hand placement, relentless motor. I mean, there was a lot to work with that. I really liked what I saw from him.
I was surprised. I was surprised that he was the one cut from the practice squad. I didn't expect him to see the 53 anytime soon, but I was surprised he didn't make the practice squad.
All right, well, Giants fans, if you're listening in Chicago, I got news for you. The Sopranos are coming to downtown Chicago Athenium Center this Saturday. It's all going down with Michael Imperioli, Steven Sherpa. If you want the hookup, my guy has got you covered, the VIP experience. Hit him up, sopranosbookingagent@gmail.com, sopranosbookingagent@gmail.com. Tell him Rick sent you. He's going to give you the best seats in the house, very intimate experience. And don't worry, all my New York, New Jersey brethren, they're coming back around again. We're going to have some ticket giveaways, so keep it locked. New and Blue, a New York Giants podcast. We're here each and every Monday. The All Access Football Daily Show launched this morning, as a matter of fact, 7 days a week, 10 a.m. Eastern. Also, enjoy some of our other podcasts on the platform. We have QB Huddle, which airs tomorrow. Tim Smith and Lo Morales holding it down there. And, of course, Scouting the League podcast with Neil Stratton, Roderick David, peeling back the layers of the onion inside the scouting and agent community. If you like that kind of stuff, you want to know how the sausage is made, we got you covered over at allaccessfootball.com. We also published the scouting notebook this morning over at allaccessfootball.com if you want the movers and shakers from the college football action. And use our promo code RICVIP. You get a 30% discount on that All Access Football annual membership, which includes the 2026 NFL Draft Bible. We're going to take a quick commercial break. Don't go anywhere.
Remember this game against Georgia? Jackson Dart. He was awesome. Every phase of the game. Like the play action floater here to his tight end. You got to take something off it. You got to put it over the linebacker's head and get it to his tight end. And then you make this throw from deep in your end zone. You got to cut it loose. Georgia's trying to pin him down here. They're thinking about a safety right here. He just lets it fly. Right there. Quick slant right there, right on the money. Get himself out of trouble. Then you make this throw where you just got to grip it. You just got to rip it. I mean, that's just the name of the game right here. Like over the middle, you got color coming right in your face, and you put that ball right on the money. Right there. Hit Watkins in stride for 33 yards. And then the anticipation right here. Georgia's loaded up right here. All right, here they come. Like just this. That's where you do it. All right, beat man coverage right there. You get them on the run, a lot of yards after the catch. And then this throw, this read right here. All right, here you go. You got a short motion coming in right now, and they're going to basically work this hole. They're going to clear it out right here, get right into the honeycomb hole. He puts it right on it. All right, and then this throw to go up 2 scores, right? This throw into the end zone right here, the one touchdown pass of this game. Like here it is. The throw is perfect. All right. You got right on the snow cone right there. And then to finish the game, to put it on ice right here. All right? Nobody there. Take off with it in the fourth quarter. Against those dogs, that's impressive. Jackson Dart. All right? Take a look at Emeka Buka right here in the Rose Bowl 2 years ago against Oregon, tracking a deep ball. Like his ability just to do it is pretty good. You watch the throw right here by Howard, and you just watch him streaking through the post and how easy and fluid he is just with a basket catch. But it's just about everything. You watch him right here. They called a lot of plays for him over the last 3 years. And he's going to do the same thing on Monday night, okay, against Notre Dame. But you watch him right here and how fluid he is, just coming across the formation, making people miss. Like he's 6'1", he's 209. You watch him track this ball in the end zone. Remember this game against Indiana, 2 highly ranked teams, and you just watch him just tracking it, feet and bounds. I mean, it's just one play after another. So, like he's going to take the defense to deep water right here, and then watch him come out of his break. Fluid coming out of the break. On the sideline, toe tap. All right? I mean, he's got all the skills. You watch him right here in the slot. Watch him separate and then finish. All right? Put this foot in the ground. Bam. Just get that separation, and then right here, right to the end zone. He did that a bunch against Michigan State. You know, against Iowa, probably the best game he ever played. You just watch it right here. And you watch him time this play action pass right here, and then the burst to the end zone. All right, catch the ball right in front of the pylon. There's a lot to like right here. A lot to like about his ability. And you watch it mostly from the slot, but you watch this wheel route right here. I mean, it's just classic. All right, just positioning yourself, body catch, feet in bounds, 1 of 3 touchdowns in a day against Iowa.
All right, back at it again, New and Blue with your host, Rick Serritella, Dan Orlando here. You're listening to the sounds of Brian Baldinger, who will be back for our NFL DraftCast show starting with the draft season in January. And you saw him breaking down Jackson Dart there, Dan. Hopefully the last highlights that we'll see in the Ole Miss uniform, eh?
I think so. Look, he looks better in 6 than he does in 2. I mean, that was my thoughts watching him. But look, you saw a lot of the things that Brian Daboll was excited about, including just delivering some really good throws while under pressure. So yeah, I think all Giants fans are hoping it's a while until we see him, just because that means Russell Wilson's rolling. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we're gonna get into our keys of the game later on in the show, but first, we're gonna try to project some of the inactives, Dan, for this upcoming game. Obviously, 53-man roster. There's going to be 7 who do not suit up. Any idea who that may be?
Well, in the modern NFL, having that third guy be the inactive quarterback, so he counts towards that 7, is now the new norm, except for the Giants, we don't really know which way they're going to go. If they declare, let's say, Jackson Dart as that third quarterback, he cannot enter the game, even if it's mop-up duty, unless Jameis Winston's also had a shot and not been medically cleared to return. So given the fact that the Giants probably want to get Dart some of those reps, but would probably rather have Jameis Winston anyway be their real backup should something happen early in the game. Going to be interesting to watch there. That's just a note I wanted to share on that. But in terms of picking who else is going to be on the inactive list, look, Giants fans are used to this being a useless exercise because there's 4 or 5 walking wounded anyway, and then there's maybe 2 healthy scratches. The reality is, outside of Andrew Thomas and 1 special teams linebacker, everyone's probably going to go. So I'm predicting that Fedone is one of those guys that is not getting a game day roster, especially if Theo Johnson's cleared to go. If he's not, that could change. But they'd have 3 tight ends. They would not need Fedone. I also feel that Darius Alexander, I mentioned earlier, I think he's the odd man out along the defensive line. Also think this is not a week we see Elijah Chapman get elevated from the practice squad, just because, quite frankly, I think they're going to want Davidson, who's really the J.D. Davidson, to be the backup nose tackle. He's going to get the last defensive line spot. In reality, Dexter Lawrence didn't really play this preseason, so they may find him getting a little worn out in that game and want to have a nose tackle to slide in there. I think he gets the priority. But here's the big one. Here's the one I'm really, really watching. Jalen Hyatt. A lot of Giants fans felt that maybe he shouldn't have even made this roster. He's a one-trick pony right now. He does not play the receiver well at the NFL, receiver position well at the NFL level. He was really just a deep threat. And you have Darius Slayton, who can also complement Neighbors and be clearing out defenders, as long as everybody's healthy. And Bo Collins, who did make this team, and even with all the roster gymnastics, makes this team, can block. He can block down at the goal line. He can play special teams. Jalen Hyatt might not get a jersey.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. And at this stage, it's just an egotistical spot on the roster because we invested a high draft pick. They don't want to part ways with him, but let's be honest, he has no value to this ball club. I mean, what are we doing here? All right, I know you had a couple of rookies for us to keep an eye on as well.
I do. So, if I'm looking at, obviously I mentioned Carter. I expect this to be a game where he gets a lot of opportunities, and I am optimistic he's going to make the most of them. Cam Scattaboo is the big question mark. This is a guy that, frankly, we kind of got robbed seeing what he would do in the preseason. He did get a few snaps in that third game right at the beginning. Looked like he, understandably so. It was his first professional game while everyone else had been out there for a couple of games, and he was, looked like he was finding his way. I don't expect him to be, I expect him to dress, but I don't expect him to have a massive impact on Sunday unless he really just takes his first opportunity and makes a hell of a play off the bat. I'm expecting Singletary to be that true second running back this time around. So that's really where my focus on that side of the ball. I don't expect Marcus Bowe to be playing unless there's a couple of injuries along the offensive line, or if it should be James Hudson that goes down. if Andrew Thomas does in fact not play and they decide to move Illuminor over. But, in terms of on the defensive side of the ball, I mentioned Darius Alexander. My guess is he's not going to play. From a rookie standpoint there, look, they lost Corey Black. That's not somebody who's going to be on the team. So from a defensive standpoint, I think it's really going to be Abdul Carter's show. And a lot of places have him pegged as defensive rookie of the year. So it starts Sunday if he wants a shot at that.
Yeah, maybe the NFL rookie of the year. Who knows? We shall see.
Yeah.
You mentioned Bo Collins. I mean, I think, some of these rookies are kind of on the back burner. You're going to see them in the second half of the season, I think, step up and play a key role. But you mentioned Marcus Mabo, Bo Collins, even Scatterbill. I could see him down the stretch.
Yeah.
I could see them preserving him early on. I agree with your sentiment there, but I'm itching for the day that we see Cam Scatterbo with Elijah Chapman as the lead blocker in the same backfield, baby. Give me that.
That would be a lot of fun. And honestly, yeah, I think if the Giants had a little bit more depth, ironically, if the Giants had more depth on the defensive line, I think Elijah Chapman would get that call up. But, he's a pass rush specialist. I think they have all they need there. But I'm itching for that as well. I'd almost rather see him just be a fullback so we could see more of that. But yeah, I think it's going to be a game where if Bo Collins does make an impact, it may very well be on special teams. And we talked all summer about should the Giants, go and court Gabe Davis. And a big part of that was because he could block well on running plays. And that is something that Bo Collins, who does struggle with, doesn't really know which route to run too often, as we saw in the preseason, but he can block. So that's maybe where he stands out. He might not be the guy at the center of the screen, but he might be the guy when you watch the replay, you notice come in and take out that linebacker at the right time.
All right, Dan Orlando, Rick Serritella, chopping it up, breaking it down. New and Blue, episode 6 here on this Monday, September 1st. Counting you down to the Sunday kickoff, 1 p.m. at Washington Commanders. And Dan's got 3 keys to victory, 3 reasons why they'll win, 3 reasons why they'll lose. Before we get into that, just a couple of facts and figures, I guess we'll call them. Opening day, season kickoff, all time, New York Giants, 51 wins, 44 losses, 2 ties. Brian Daboll, 1-2 in opening week kickoffs. Now, little sense of optimism here, at least. At least 2 teams have won their division after missing the playoffs entirely in 20 of the past 22 years. So teams that haven't made the playoffs, at least one team has made the playoffs in 20 of the last 22 years. All right. In 26 of the past 29 years, you've had at least one team make the playoffs who finished in the last place the year before. So 26 out of 29 years, from worst to first, the New York Giants actually did that in 2005. Also, the Giants will travel 16,081 miles this year on the road. That is the 21st most miles traveled. How about Cincinnati, though? They got it pretty made in the shade. Cincinnati's only going to travel 8,000 miles total all season. That's incredible.
Yeah.
On the opposite end of the spectrum, the LA Chargers are going to travel 37,086 miles.
Yeah,
so
we all know there's so many NFL teams in the Southwest and West Coast. So, but yeah, that's a tough one. It's tough.
Yeah, and I will say the LA Rams were I believe number 2 behind the Chargers. So the LA teams,
it's tough
on the road again. But all right, let's break it down. Giants at Commanders, week 1. Let's get the negative out of the way first. 3 reasons why the Giants might lose. Dan, go ahead.
Well, I'm going to start with the big question mark around Andrew Thomas. If he doesn't go, and I think we both agree that Hudson's a serviceable player, but he's not Andrew Thomas when he's healthy. So if you're a Giants fan the past 10 years, you know that an offensive line falling apart tends to be the end of your chances for a win. Now, granted, we have a competent quarterback in there, which we'll get to in a little bit, but look, you really want to see this line perform well. If they can be average, this should be an offense that looks markedly better than last year. That's an extremely low bar, but you still need to be average to beat the Commanders at the very least. So if it's not Andrew Thomas, is James Hudson at least being serviceable, or is Jermaine Illuminor, flipped over there? what is that going to look like for the offensive line? And if it doesn't work out, it's going to be very tough for the Giants to win this game.
Yeah, I feel like I've been saying this for the past decade. I want to just wait and see with this offensive line. That's certainly a major concern for me. Also, Malik Neighbors. I mean, let's just talk about him for a second because we haven't seen him much of him lately, and they've kind of downplayed it. But like, if that injury is lingering, like the whole identity of this team is one-dimensional.
I think so. Neighbors, so he's obviously listed on the positive side. That's not going to be a spoiler alert for anybody. But if you're looking at it from an honest perspective, this is a guy that while he did make some big plays in training camp on the practice field, he hasn't played in games with Russell Wilson yet. And he didn't get, the opportunities in the preseason because he didn't play in the preseason to develop some of that chemistry in a game. So that could be a factor as well, since we're talking about week one. I think the reality is he's probably as healthy as he's going to be for week one. The bigger problem is that this sounds like a guy that's going to be, always nicked up, got that Plaxico Burress vibe where you feel like he really shouldn't be practicing, but he's going to show out on game day. But the worry is every season going to be a worry about, hey, by November, is he still playing? So I think that's something to watch for the Giants. He turned down surgery this offseason. It felt that wasn't the best course. If he has a season that's plagued with injury, if he misses 3 weeks here, another 2-3 weeks there, maybe they revisit surgery. But this is a guy that's always has some nicks and things like that, and the Giants are content to just put him in bubble wrap because they feel like he's just going to show up on game day.
Well, I hope he shows up. I can tell you this. If he misses any amount of extended period of time, the Giants season is all but over. They just won't be able to move the ball. And I hate to put it all on one guy, but he's that integral to the entire team. You mentioned Russell Wilson, probably the biggest acquisition on paper in terms of new G-men who were brought in this offseason. And, it doesn't get discussed a lot in the media here. Like, we just assume like Russ is going to step in and steer the ship. But, I mean, Pittsburgh discarded him. He got off to a good start, but then faltered down the stretch. Like, we can't just assume that Russell Wilson is going to be Russell Wilson. I think he's kind of a question mark as well coming into this game.
Well, you touched on it right there. You said he started off hot and then he fell apart. I think the good news for Giants fans is if this season is going to be more fun to watch than last year, then they need to have a hot start just to at least, even when it gets rough in the middle, to still be in it around Thanksgiving, around the holidays. So if you get a good run from Russell Wilson to start, then that puts this season off to a much better honestly, the odds of it being a good season and being in it in December obviously go way up. But I agree with you. I think the negative with Russell Wilson is there's a reason he's on his, I believe it's his fourth team here already, and only, I think, 3 years. He definitely looks like he's not the guy from 2012, 2013, and he shouldn't be. He's not at that level anymore. But here's the other side of that. The Giants had a very, very low bar in terms of competent quarterback play. They have a guy in here who's not afraid to throw a deep pass, who's not afraid to throw a passing concept past the sticks if he has to. They didn't have that last year. They had a quarterback who looked like he was scared to play the game. So I don't think Russell Wilson's going to come out here and be a Pro Bowl quarterback this year. I in no way envision that. But if he can be competent, if he can get the ball to Malik Neighbors, if he can get the ball to Darius Slayton, get the ball to Theo Johnson, the Giants should be able to beat a team like the Commanders who, without that quarterback play and without a kicker for one of the games last year, they almost beat twice. So I do think that Russell Wilson's going to give them a little bit something compared to that they had last year. But on that same note, we're in November, you and I are probably going to be talking about when is it time for Jackson Dart.
No doubt about it. Well, you mentioned they almost beat them twice. It's time for predictions. Dan, give us the 3 keys to victory and your final prediction.
So my 3 keys to victory for them are are we keeping Terry McLaurin under wraps? Now, the advantage there, much like Andrew Thomas, if he does play, he basically missed all of the offseason because he wasn't injured. He was holding out for a better contract. So that is something that might play to the Giants' advantage. If you guys remember, if you're older guys like me and even older like Rick, if you remember Michael Strahan, sorry, Rick, I didn't mean for you to catch a stray, but in reality, if you remember Michael Strahan in 2007, I was a freshman in college, And Strahan basically more or less just didn't feel like going to training camp. Back then, training camp was actually much, much harder. They had 2-a-days. There was less rules in terms of how grueling those practices would be. And he basically just didn't want to go. So the reality was the week 1 opener at Dallas on Sunday Night Football, he suited up because he showed up to the team like 2 weeks before, but he played like a very limited role. He was really like their third edge rusher, and he wasn't ready. He was not in football shape. So the reality is that going to be what we see from Terry McLaurin? It's very possible. That would be a boost for the Giants. It'd be wrong to pretend it's not, especially with those cornerback issues we talked about at the a little bit earlier in the show. My second out of the 3, are we containing Jaden Daniels and are we shaking them up? Last year, the Giants with a good pass rush, but not an elite one, were able to get to him at times. Can we do more this year? Can we keep him off rhythm? And this is now going to tie into what the third key to victory is, because this is the big one. Are we keeping the Commanders in a passing situation? Is that run defense holding up? Austin Eckler, even if he most likely in week 1, I feel like he will be the lead, even with the rookie behind him. This is a guy that in a limited role last year did still have 4.8 yards per carry. So is this a guy who's going to be your bell cow for the entire season? No, but with one game to go, like one game into the season, I wouldn't be shocked if he had a good day. So look, that Giants defense needs to stop the run, force the Commanders to be in 3rd and longs where the Giants have 4 of the best pass rushers in the league coming after him. And if they can do that, and if they have a competent offense with a competent quarterback who's able to get them, past 10 points a game, they have a very real chance at winning this game and starting the season off at 1-0, which would drastically change the outlook for the rest of the year. Oh, and final prediction. I think you're on mute. But final prediction for score. I'll definitely throw that out there.
Well, hold on. I was going to say the Giants are getting 6.5 points. The over/under is 45.5. Prediction time, Dan. Who do you got?
I do have the Giants sneaking it out. I do.
All right. Are we going to get a score prediction there?
Score's tough for week 1. Here's my thinking on it. I think the Commanders are coming off very hot. I think the Giants have a lot of positive vibes. They have reasons that they're more improved than they were last year. I don't think, like we talked about, I don't think Russell Wilson is them finding, something that's going to get them to the Super Bowl, but he is going to be an upgrade. I do think they've upgraded in other areas. And I think the Commanders, look, their defense, while it has a great defensive mind at the helm, is a little bit suspect in terms of personnel. I think their best offensive weapon missed most of training camp. I think Jaden Daniels is a sophomore quarterback. I just feel like the Giants are just going to hit it at the right time. Score, I'm going to say that the Giants edge it out 24-17.
All right. Well, I can't say I'm sipping the big blue Kool-Aid just yet, okay?
Yeah.
And Giants fans, don't kill me. I don't want to be the bearer of bad news. I do think it's going to be a very close game. I think the Giants will be in it. The concerns, just like Terry McLaurin for Washington, I have the same concerns from Malik Neighbors. Now, he did spend some time in camp. The offensive line is a big question mark. Russell Wilson, I still got to see it to believe it. I just feel like there's more questions than answers against the Commanders team who nearly found themselves in the Super Bowl at the season's end. So while I think the Giants have made vast improvement, I'm all about the optimism. I'm all about the over. The Vegas has disrespected them downright dirty. I mean, 5.5 win total. I think they'll get to 6 easily, and I think they can even push 9 and maybe sneak into the playoffs. However, I think it's going to be tough sledding here in week 1. I'm going to go 24-20 Washington. So similar scores, different outcomes. We'll come back next week, Dan, and talk about it, be about it. This was New and Blue, a New York Giants podcast. Any parting shots for the people before we go?
Well, look, we spent a year mocking Joe Shane, rightfully so. He let Saquon Barkley go off, and no one could understand why the Giants would send off their best player. And it only took a year for there to be a new team to do that, and it's in the NFC East. It's Micah Parsons leaving the Dallas Cowboys, and I get it. I understand Jerry feels like there's a longer play here, and that's all well and good. But the reality is that drastically changed the Giants' outlook for the season. You feel that, hey, Vegas, is cutting them short. The reality is that might be true because Dallas may not be as strong of a team. So I'm very, very interested in this coming Thursday night. I would be anyway. It's the start of the new year. But, man, if Philly comes out and just tears into Dallas, which is very possible, rips them up, gives them that 40-0 treatment that the Giants got from Dallas 2 years ago, I'm feeling very bullish on getting the 6 wins. So let's see what happens there. As a Giants fan, that's my rooting interest in that game, and we'll see how that goes.
I think Philadelphia is going to lay the belt down on Dallas on Thursday night. I mean, I think it could be a massacre. Yeah. And, egos destroy football organizations. Jerry Jones dealing off Micah Parsons to the Green Bay Packers. This is one of the most historic trades in league history.
Yeah. And his rationale scares me a little bit if I'm a Dallas fan. He feels they're going to get 2 all-pro players back with the picks they got. Well, you had 1. So your best case scenario is net 1. And we all know with the draft, it is a crapshoot, no matter how much, work and how much of an expert you are. So,
well, the whole point of the draft is to find cornerstone players and build around them. And they had one in Micah Parsons, and they let him go over about a $4 million difference per year annually, which
at edge rusher, this is not running back where you can kind of say, all right, edge rusher. So you're not just they don't grow on trees. You could get the top 10 pick next year, and it could be an edge rusher, and it might just be like, all right, he's good, but he's not Micah Parsons. So questionable to say the least.
Well, I think when you combine the state, the mood, the atmosphere around Dallas, I think the Giants are clearly a better team, and we shall see as the season plays out. Dan Orlando, Rick Serritella, New and Blue, episode 6, a New York Giants podcast. We're here live each and every Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern time. We'll be back at it again next week. Of course, the All Access Football Daily Show launched this morning, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 days a week. Buckle up for that. We're coming right back at you in about 14 hours or so. I'll be back on your screen. You guys are going to be sick of me. Of course, tomorrow we got the QB Huddle podcast, Scouting the League podcast. Go check out the Scouting Notebook up at allaccessfootball.com. Unlock the magic with our promo code RICVIP. Save 30% off of that. And, of course, it's all brought to you by Talking Sopranos. They're invading Chicago. They're taking over Chi-Town. Go check them out at the Athenium Center. Email my guy, sopranosbookingagent@gmail.com. sopranosbookingagent@gmail.com. He's going to hook you up close and personal with Michael Imperioli, Steven Sherpa. We're going to have ticket giveaways here throughout the season, so keep it locked. Appreciate Dan's insight and time. We'll be back at it again tomorrow morning. We'll be back right here next Monday, and buckle up.